Three puppies hang dying in a junkyard, saved by a broken man facing a sinister threat. Welcome to Pause Verve. Like and share this video with those who love dogs and their stories. Late August in Willow Creek, Georgia, drapes the world in a heavy, suffocating heat that presses down from a pale bleached sky and rises from the cracked earth in a relentless embrace. The air is thick with the scent of scorched grass and rusted metal, a constant reminder of a town where time moves at a crawl and hope feels like a whisper from a long-forgotten past. On the outskirts of Willow Creek, where the pavement frays into gravel and the houses thin into sagging relics of better days, lies an abandoned junkyard, a sprawling graveyard of twisted scrap, faded tires and broken appliances. The junkyard stretches across the weed-choked ground, its boundaries undefined, blending into the horizon, like a wound left untended. At its edge stands a gnarled oak tree, its bark peeling like old skin, its branches clawing at the sky in silent defiance of the decay around it. The tree casts a meager shadow over a patch of dry dirt where the air feels denser, as if the weight of neglect has seeped into the soil itself. Cicadas hum faintly, their song subdued by the oppressive heat, and even the wind seems to avoid this corner of town as if unwilling to disturb the stillness. The junkyard is a place where things are left to die, where the world turns its back and keeps walking. Broken washing machines lean against splintered crates, their enamel chipped, their insides gutted by time and scavengers. Tires stacked in uneven piles sag under their own weight, their treads worn smooth by years of disuse. Shards of glass glint in the dirt, catching the sunlight like cruel winks from a world that no longer cares. The oak tree stands as the lone sentinel, its roots buried deep in the hard earth, its trunk scarred by decades of storms and indifference. Its lowest branch, thick and crooked, stretches out like an arm, offering no comfort, only a stark reminder of survival against the odds. The ground beneath it is littered with brittle weeds, their stems snapped under the weight of the heat. A rusted, chain-link fence half collapsed encircles parts of the junkyard, its posts leaning at odd angles, as if exhausted by the effort of standing. Beyond the fence, the land opens into fields of tall grass, gone to seed, their golden tips swaying in a breeze, too weak to cool anything. The sky above is vast and empty, its blue faded to a sickly pallor by the sun's unyielding glare. In Willow Creek, the heat doesn't just burn, it suffocates, wrapping the town in a haze that blurs the edges of reality. The streets leading to the junkyard are lined with modest homes, their paint peeling, their porches sagging under the weight of years. Some have small gardens, where wilted flowers fight for life in cracked pots, while others have given up entirely, their yards overtaken by dandelions and crabgrass. The people here move slowly, their faces etched with the kind of weariness that comes from carrying too much for too long. They've learned to look away from places like the junkyard, to pretend the decay doesn't exist, because acknowledging it means confronting their own struggles. The town itself feels like a memory of something better, a place where dreams once took root, but have long since withered under the weight of hardship. The junkyard is the heart of this forgotten corner, a monument to abandonment, where the echoes of what was mingle with the silence of what is. Yet in this desolate scene, something stirs, a faint movement beneath the oak tree that carries the weight of a story waiting to unfold. It's a story of cruelty, met with compassion, of broken souls, finding their way back to light in a place where darkness seems to reign. The oak tree, with its gnarled branches and stubborn roots, stands as both witness and anchor its presence, a quiet promise that even in the bleakest corners, life persists. The heat presses down harder as the day wears on, the sun climbing higher, its rays slicing through the haze like blades. The cicadas' hum grows softer, almost mournful, as if they too feel the weight of the place. A lone crow perches on a rusted refrigerator, its black eyes scanning the junkyard with cold indifference, before it takes flight, its wings cutting through the stillness. The gravel path leading to the junkyard is barely a path at all, more a suggestion of passage worn by the occasional trespasser or scavenger. It winds past a crumbling shed, its roof caved in, its walls tagged with faded graffiti that no one bothers to erase. The shed's door hangs open, revealing shadows within, where spiders weave their webs undisturbed. The junkyard is not a place for the living, or so it seems, yet the faint rustle beneath the oak tree hints at something fragile, something fighting to hold on. The air carries a faint metallic tang mixed with the dry bitterness of dust, a scent that clings to the skin and lingers in the throat. The ground is uneven, littered with bits of wire plastic bags and shards of porcelain from a sink, long since shattered. Every step in the junkyard feels like trespass, not because it's forbidden, but because it's a place that demands solitude, that thrives on being forgotten. The oak tree's shadow shifts slightly as the sun moves its edges, softening the harsh lines of the dirt below. The weeds sway almost imperceptibly, their brittle tips brushing against the ropes that hang from the tree's lowest branch, ropes that will soon reveal the heart of this story. The junkyard is a canvas of loss, but it's also a stage where redemption can begin, where the smallest act of courage can ripple outward, changing everything. The heat, the silence, the decay, they are all part of Willow Creek's pulse, a pulse that beats faintly but persistently, waiting for someone to listen. The town may feel like a relic, but it's not dead, not yet, and neither is the junkyard despite its appearance. The oak tree stands as proof, rooted deep, unyielding, a symbol of endurance in a world that seems to have given up. The story that begins. Here will be one of healing, of finding light in the darkest places, of choosing to care when it would be easier to walk away. The junkyard, with all its brokenness, is the perfect place for such a story because it knows the weight of being left behind. As the sun reaches its peak, the heat becomes a living thing, wrapping Willow Creek in its suffocating grip. But beneath the oak tree, a faint sound breaks the silence, a sound that will draw someone closer, someone who needs saving as much as the lives he will soon encounter. Beneath the gnarled oak tree in the desolate junkyard of Willow Creek, Georgia, 3 golden retriever puppies, no older than a month, hang limply from coarse, splintering ropes tied to the lowest branch, their tiny bodies swaying in the merciless August heat. The ropes are knotted tightly around their fragile forelegs and shoulders, forming crude slings that suspend them just inches above the cracked dirt, high enough to prevent their paws from touching the ground, low enough for their suffering to be a cruel spectacle. The smallest puppy, with pale cream fur and soft curls around her ears, dangles motionless, her breathing so faint it barely stirs the dust clinging to her coat. Her eyes are half closed, glazed with exhaustion, her body limp, as if she has already surrendered to the sun's relentless assault. The second puppy, a richer brown with oversized paws that should have promised playful bounds, hangs with his head slumped forward, his chest rising and falling in quick, shallow gasps. His fur is matted with sweat and grime, his tongue lolling slightly, as he fights to draw air into his weakening lungs. The third, the largest of the trio, has a coat like warm amber, and though his strength is fading, he lifts his head weakly whenever a gust of hot air rattles the ropes, his eyes still holding a flicker of defiance. All 3 are on the edge of life, their whimpers barely audible, their bodies battered by hours under the white-hot sun. The ropes bite into their tender skin, leaving raw red marks that ooze faintly with blood. Flies buzz around their ears, drawn to the scent of vulnerability, their wings a cruel mockery of the freedom these puppies will never know, unless someone intervenes. The scene is the work of a broken soul, a stooped elderly man whose mind is clouded by dementia and whose hands tremble with confusion rather than malice. Earlier that morning he arrived in a rattling pickup truck, its bed filled with cardboard, boxes and tangled wire, barefoot and mumbling fragments of sentences that made sense only to him. He carried the puppies in a frayed burlap sack, his movements slow but deliberate. He tied each one to the branch with the care of someone performing a ritual, his eyes never meeting theirs, his face blank of emotion. When he finished, he wiped his brow with a shaking hand, climbed back into the truck, and drove away, the gravel crunching under his tires as he disappeared down a road that seemed to lead nowhere. A few neighbors glimpsed him from their porches or windows, their gazes lingering just long enough to register the oddity before turning away. A woman watering a dying geranium shook her head, muttering about the strangeness of old Mr. Hargrove, but did nothing. A man checking his mailbox across the field paused, his fingers tightening on the envelopes, before he retreated inside his screen door, slamming shut. In Willow Creek, survival often means minding your own business. Trouble passes faster when you don't invite it to stay. The puppies remain unseen by those who could help, their plight ignored by a town that has grown accustomed to looking the other way. The oak tree looms over them, its shadow offering no relief as the sun climbs higher, its rays slicing through the haze like knives. The junkyard around them is a silent witness, its piles of rusted metal and shattered glass reflecting the heat in shimmering waves. The air is thick with the tang of iron and decay, a smell that clings to everything, making each breath feel like swallowing ash. The ground beneath the puppies is littered with brittle weeds, their tips snapping under the faintest breeze. A rusted hubcap lies tilted nearby its surface, catching the sunlight in a cruel glint that seems to mock the puppy's struggle. The ropes creak faintly as the branch sways, the sound a haunting rhythm in the otherwise still air. The smallest puppy, the cream-colored one, lets out a broken whimper, so soft it barely reaches beyond the shadow of the tree, before her head droops again, her body curling inward as if trying to escape the pain. The brown puppy's gasps grow more erratic, his paws twitching uselessly as he tries to find a position that eases the strain on his tiny frame. The amber-coated puppy still watches the horizon, his eyes searching for something or someone, though his strength is nearly spent. Their suffering is a quiet tragedy, unfolding in a place where no one seems to care, where the world has turned its back on the innocent. The junkyard's silence is oppressive, broken only by the distant hum of cicadas and the occasional caw of a crow perched on a nearby pile of scrap. The heat presses down harder as noon approaches, the temperature climbing past unbearable, into something almost alive, a force that saps the will to fight. The puppies' coats, once soft and vibrant, are now dulled by dust and dehydration, their bodies shrinking as the hours drag on. The ropes that bind them are frayed but unyielding, their fibers stained with the faint red of the puppy's blood. The oak tree stands unmoved, its roots deep in the earth, its branches heavy with the weight of this cruelty. The junkyard stretches out around it, a labyrinth of forgotten things, where the puppy's plight is just another piece of debris in a landscape of loss. Yet even in this bleak corner of Willow Creek, there is a faint pulse of possibility, a chance that someone might hear the puppy's fading cries and choose to act. The town may have learned to look away, but not everyone has forgotten how to see, not everyone has lost the capacity to care. The puppies hang on by the thinnest thread, their lives dependent on a stranger's courage, on a moment when compassion triumphs over indifference. The oak tree's shadow shifts slightly as the sun moves its edges, softening the harsh lines of the dirt below. The ropes sway again, the puppies' bodies trembling with each movement, their whimpers growing fainter, but not yet gone. The junkyard waits its silence, a challenge to anyone who might pass by, a question of whether they will walk away or step forward. The puppy's fate is a story unwritten, a tale of suffering that could become one of salvation, if only someone listens, if only someone cares enough to change the ending. James Carter walks the tired streets of Willow Creek, Georgia, his boots scuffing against the uneven pavement, his shadow trailing behind him like a ghost he cannot shake. At 47, he carries the build of a man who once worked with his hands. Broad-shouldered, lean, with roped muscles that hint at years spent shaping wood into furniture that filled homes with warmth. Now those hands hang idle, tucked into the pockets of jeans that sag loosely at his hips, his flannel shirt faded from too many washes, its sleeves rolled up against the oppressive August heat. His face, once open and quick to smile, is now etched. With lines of sorrow, his beard streaked with grey, framing a jaw that clenches more often than it softens. His eyes, ice blue and thoughtful, rarely meet those of passers-by, as if looking too long might reveal the weight he carries inside. James was a good man, once a carpenter, whose workshop on Maple Street buzzed with the hum of saws and the scent of fresh cedar, a place where neighbors brought broken chairs and left with stories. He coached his son Noah's Little League team, shouting encouragement from the sidelines, his laughter as bright as the summer sun. But grief has a way of rewriting men, and 3 years ago it rewrote James. His wife Lila collapsed in their kitchen one evening, her heart failing before she could call his name. She was gone before the ambulance arrived, leaving James and Noah in a house that suddenly felt too big, too quiet. Noah, then 17, reacted with a rage that burned hotter than his father's silence, stealing from corner stores, crashing cars, disappearing for days. Their last fight ended with Noah's fist through the drywall, and a single sentence screamed in the dark, "You let her die, Dad." Noah left that night, his backpack slung over one shoulder, and hasn't returned since. James stopped writing to him. After the third unanswered letter, each one ending with words he didn't know how to mean anymore. The workshop closed its doors, the tools gathering dust, the orders left unfinished. Now James lives in a modest one-story home, its paint peeling its porch cluttered with unopened mail, and a swing that hasn't moved since Lila last sat there. He spends his days walking with no destination, passing strip malls with more vacancies, then stores a church with weeds choking its steps, a diner where the coffee tastes like regret. The town knows him as the man who used to be someone, the carpenter who lost his spark, whose smile vanished with his family. This morning, restless and suffocating in the silence of his empty house, James left before dawn, his boots carrying him through streets that feel like a map of his failures. The heat presses against him, but he barely notices his mind caught in a loop of memories: Lila's laugh, Noah's angry eyes, the way the world felt whole before it broke. He passes the rusted sign for the junkyard without a glance, his thoughts too heavy to notice the world around him. The streets are quiet save for the occasional hum of a car or the bark of a dog behind a sagging fence. Willow Creek is a town that holds its breath, waiting for something to change. But James has stopped waiting. He walks because sitting still feels like giving up, because movement, however aimless, is the only thing keeping him from disappearing entirely. His boots kick up small clouds of dust as he moves past a boarded-up barber shop, its sign faded to illegibility, past a gas station where the pumps are wrapped in caution tape. The air smells of asphalt and despair, a reminder that Willow Creek is a place where dreams come to fade. James's hands clench in his pockets, his fingers brushing against a small wooden keychain carved years ago for Lila, a gift she carried until the end. The memory stings, but he doesn't push it away, not today. He's tired of running from the past, tired of pretending he can outwalk the pain. His path takes him closer to the junkyard, its rusted hulks looming in the distance like a warning. He doesn't know why he's drawn this way, doesn't know that fate is about to collide with his footsteps. The heat is thicker now, the sun climbing higher, its rays cutting through the haze with a sharpness that makes his eyes ache. The cicadas have gone silent, their song replaced by the low hum of flies circling something he hasn't yet seen. James's breath catches not from the heat, but from a feeling he can't name, a pull towards something waiting just beyond his sight. The junkyard's gravel path crunches under his boots as he moves without thinking, his body leading where his mind hasn't yet caught up. He's a man who has lost everything worth holding, a man who wakes each day wondering why he bothers to wake at all. But James Carter is also a man who once built things that lasted, who loved fiercely, who taught his son how to swing a bat and his wife how to dance in the kitchen. That man is still in there, buried beneath the weight of grief, waiting for a reason to surface. The junkyard looms closer now, its piles of scrap glinting in the sunlight, its silence heavier than the heat. The oak tree stands at its edge, its branches casting jagged shadows that seem to beckon. James doesn't know what lies beneath that tree, doesn't know that 3 tiny lives are hanging by a thread, their whimpers too faint to reach him yet. He doesn't know that this moment, this walk, this seemingly aimless path through a broken town is about to change everything. The man who has forgotten how to hope is about to stumble into a reason to try again, a reason wrapped in fur and fragility, a reason that will ask him to be more than he believes he can be. The streets of Willow Creek fade behind him, the junkyard's edge drawing nearer with each step. James Carter walks on, unaware that he's not just walking toward a crisis, but toward a chance to rebuild not just 3 lives, but his own. James. Carter's boots crunch against the gravel as he nears the junkyard in Willow Creek, Georgia, his steps slowing without reason, his chest tightening with an instinct he cannot name. The August heat wraps around him thick and unyielding, but it's not the sun that makes his breath catch. It's a sound faint and fractured like a thread snapping in the silence. A whimper, thin as a blade, cuts through the hum of flies and the distant creak of rusted metal, pulling his gaze toward the gnarled oak tree at the junkyard's edge. He freezes his ice-blue eyes, scanning the shadows beneath the tree's crooked branches, where something moves barely alive. The sound comes again, a soft broken cry that pierces the haze of his grief, and drags him forward, his legs moving before his mind can argue. The junkyard's clutter fades into a blur of twisted scrap and shattered glass as he steps over a fallen chain-link fence, his boots sinking into the dry dirt. The oak looms closer, its bark peeling in long, ashen strips, its lowest branch heavy, with a weight that shouldn't be there. James's heart stumbles as he sees them 3 golden retriever puppies, no older than a month, tied to the branch with coarse ropes, their tiny bodies dangling just above the ground. The smallest, a cream-colored pup with curls like down feathers, sways limply. Her eyes half open, her breathing so faint it barely stirs the dust on her fur. The second, a brown-coated pup with oversized paws, hangs with his head slumped his chest, heaving in shallow gasps, his tongue dry and cracked. The third, the largest, with amber fur, lifts his head weakly, his eyes locking onto James with a flicker of something that looks like hope. The ropes bite into their skin, raw and red, the knots cruelly tight, suspending them in a way that's meant to be seen to be a punishment for existing. Flies circle their ears, their wings a relentless drone that makes James's stomach turn. The why sight is a fist to his chest, a brutality that shakes loose the numbness he's carried since Lila's death, since Noah's departure. He whispers a curse under his breath, his voice hoarse as if unused for years, and steps closer, his hands already reaching for the pocket knife he keeps in his jeans. The puppies are near the edge, their whimpers fading, their bodies trembling with the last of their strength. James's mind races not with plans, but with a raw, urgent need to act, to undo this wrong before it's too late. The smallest pup lets out another cry so weak it's almost a sigh, and it's this sound that breaks something in him, a wall he's built to keep the world at bay. He's seen cruelty before, in the way life takes what you love, in the way silence grows where laughter used to be. But this is different. This is a deliberate act, a choice to harm what cannot fight back. His fingers fumble with the knife, its blade dull but sharp enough, as he reaches for the cream-colored pup, first supporting her weight with one hand while sawing through the rope with the other. The fibers snap, and she falls into his palm light, as a feather, her body curling against his chest as he lowers her to the ground. He moves to the brown pup next, his hands steadier now, cutting the rope with a single motion, catching the pup as he tumbles forward, his oversized paws twitching faintly. The amber pup is last heavier than the others, his eyes never leaving James as the rope gives way, and he lands in James's arms, a soft growl rasping from his throat, not in anger, but in defiance. James kneels beside them, his shirt pulled off, and, spread on the dirt, the puppies gathered into its folds, their bodies warm but fragile against the worn flannel. The heat presses down the junkyard's silence, roaring in his ears, but all he sees are these 3 lives, their chests rising and falling, their eyes searching his, as if asking why this happened, as if trusting him to make it right. He doesn't know how to care for them, doesn't know if they'll survive the hour, but he knows he can't walk away, not from this, not from them. The oak tree looms above its shadow, a stark reminder of the cruelty that brought him here, but also of the chance to be something more than a man who's lost everything. James's hands tremble as he bundles the puppies closer, his fingers brushing their matted fur, his heart racing with a mix of rage and tenderness. The junkyard feels smaller now, its vast decay shrinking to this one moment, this one act of choosing to care. He stands, his boots kicking up dust as he cradles the bundle against his chest, the puppy's warmth seeping into his skin like a promise. The path back to town is a blur, his steps urgent, his mind focused on the weight in his arms. He doesn't notice the crow watching from a rusted hood, or the way the weeds sway as he passes. He doesn't think about the neighbors who might see him or the questions they might ask. All that matters is getting these puppies to safety, to his garage, where he can find water shade, something to keep them alive. James Carter, a man who has forgotten how to hope, feels something stir inside him. Not joy, not yet, but a spark, a reason to keep moving forward. The puppies whimper softly, their sounds a fragile thread tying him to the present, pulling him out of the past. He doesn't know what comes next, doesn't know if he's strong enough to save them, but for the first time in years, he wants to try. The junkyard fades behind him. The oak tree standing sentinel, its branches still but no longer heavy with suffering. Willow Creek streets open before him, the heat unrelenting, but the weight in his arms feels like purpose, like a chance to be the man he used to be. The puppies need him, and in their need he finds a mirror of his own, a reminder that even broken things can be mended if someone cares enough to try. James Carter's boots churn the gravel as he hurries from the Willow Creek junkyard, his flannel shirt bundled around 3 golden retriever puppies, their tiny bodies pressed against his chest, trembling with the faint pulse of life under the crushing August heat. The image of them hanging from the oak tree's ropes, their whimpers fading into the still air, sears his mind, pushing his legs faster toward home, a mile away, through streets that feel both familiar and foreign. The smallest pup, cream-colored with soft curls, clings to the curve of his arm, her breath so weak they barely shift the dust on her fur, her eyes closed against the world. The brown pup with oversized paws rests against his shoulder, his gasps. Slower now, but ragged, his tongue dry and cracked from hours in the sun. The amber-coated pup, the strongest, gazes up at James, his eyes sharp with a trust that feels heavier than the weight of all 3. The shirt is warm with their heat, their bodies light as leaves, yet carrying a gravity that anchors James to this moment. His lungs burn in the thick Georgia air, his muscles strain under the urgency of his pace, but he doesn't slow his steps, driven by a need to save what he's found. The town is hushed, the streets empty save for a dog barking behind a sagging fence and the faint drone of a car passing blocks away. James doesn't see the faded signs on closed storefronts or the weeds choking a mailbox. His world is the bundle in his arms, the faint whimpers that guide him like a beacon. His mind swirls with uncertainty, how to feed them, how to heal their wounds if they'll even survive. But those doubts are silenced by a resolve he hasn't felt since before Lila's death, before Noah's departure. The junkyard's cruelty has cracked open something inside him, a piece of the man who once carved hope from wood, who held his family close. His house appears ahead, its grey siding chipped, its porch cluttered with unopened boxes, the swing unmoved since Lila last touched it. He veers toward the garage, bypassing the front door, its space a relic of his carpentry days, now silent, with dust-covered tools and the scent of old varnish. Lila's gardening gloves hang on a peg, their green fabric faded, a reminder of her hands. In the earth, her laughter in the air. James kneels on the concrete floor, spreading a frayed blanket from a shelf, its fibers smelling of forgotten winters. He lays the puppies down gently, the cream-colored one curling into the brown pup's side, the amber pup sitting upright, his eyes never leaving James. The floor is cool against his knees, a relief from the heat clinging to his skin. He grabs a tin bowl from a workbench, fills it with water from a spigot, and sets it beside them, watching the amber pup lap at it. His movements careful but determined. The brown pup tries next, his paws slipping as he nudges the bowl, his nose wet again after hours of dryness. The smallest pup doesn't stir, her breathing faint, her body too weak to move. James wets his fingers, dripping water onto her lips, his heart tightening as her tongue flicks faintly. He searches a shelf, finding a can of sardines, its lid rusted, but intact, its contents still good. He pries it open with a screwdriver, the sharp scent cutting through the garage's musty air, and spoons the fish onto a chipped saucer. The amber pup eats first, his bite slow but steady. The brown pup follows his enthusiasm, sloppy, his tail twitching faintly. The cream-colored pup's nose twitches at the smell, her eyes cracking open, as James lifts her gently, offering a morsel, her tongue brushing his finger with a fragility that steals his breath. The garage is still save for the soft sounds of their eating, the faint scrape of paws, the hum of a cricket outside. James sits back, his hands on his thighs, his undershirt soaked with sweat, his mind racing but his heart steady. He doesn't know if he's doing enough, doesn't know if they'll live through the night, but he knows he's trying, and that feels like a spark in a long, dark place. The light through the cracked window softens the sun sinking low, casting shadows that dance across the blanket. The puppies finish their meal, their bellies slightly fuller, their breaths more even. They curl together, the cream-colored pup, nestled between the others. The amber pup watching James like a sentinel who's claimed his duty. James leans against a sawhorse, his eyes tracing the gloves on the wall, Lila's handwriting on a nearby. Label her cursive, a whisper of days when love filled this space. He thinks of Noah, his son's last words, "You let her die, Dad," and wonders if this act, this choice to save 3 lives, is a step toward answering that pain. The garage feels alive now, not with joy, but with possibility. Its silence broken by the puppy's soft snores. James's fingers graze the wooden keychain in his pocket, its edges smooth from years of carrying Lila's memory. He doesn't speak, but something inside him shifts, a flicker of purpose, a reason to keep going. He stands his joints stiff and locks the garage door, shielding the puppies from the world outside. The junkyard is a memory now, its cruelty a shadow. He's chosen to fight. Willow Creek settles into evening, the air cooling, the stars piercing the sky. James sits again, his back to the wall, his eyes on the puppies, his heart beating in rhythm with theirs. He's not whole, not yet, but he's a man who saw suffering and acted, a man who carried life out of death's reach. The puppies trust him, and in their trust he finds a mirror of his own need, a chance to mend what grief has broken. The garage, once a grave of memory, is now a sanctuary, its walls holding the first notes of a new beginning. James Carter sits on the concrete floor of his garage in Willow Creek, Georgia, the faint snores of 3 golden retriever puppies filling the air as they rest on a worn blanket, their tiny bodies finally still after the ordeal of the junkyard. The cream-colored pup he names Luna, for the soft light in her barely open eyes curls tightly against the brown pup Jasper, whose oversized paws twitch in dreams of running free. The amber-coated pup Ember sits apart, his gaze steady on James, a quiet strength in his eyes that seems older than his month of life. The garage smells of sawdust and motor oil, a space frozen since Lila's death 3 years ago, its shelves cluttered with tools James hasn't touched and memories he's avoided. The August heat lingers, but the garage door is cracked open, letting in a breeze that carries the scent of dry grass from the yard. James watches the puppies, their chests rising and falling, their fur still matted but softer now after he wiped them with a damp cloth. He's fed them sardines and water, their bellies fuller, their breathing steadier, but he knows they need more than he can give alone. His hands, rough from years of carpentry, rest on his knees, his undershirt damp with sweat, his mind a tangle of doubt and determination. He doesn't know how to care for puppies, doesn't know if their wounds will heal or if they'll survive the trauma of the ropes, but their trust in him, their willingness to sleep in his presence, feels like a gift he doesn't deserve. Luna stirs, letting out a soft whimper that pulls James closer. He reaches out his fingers, brushing her curls, finding a raw patch on her leg where the rope bit deep. He cleans it with water from the bowl, his touch gentle as if she might break, and she nuzzles his hand, her warmth a quiet thank you. Jasper flops onto his back, his paws waving lazily, his tongue lolling as if the world holds no more threats. Ember doesn't sleep. His eyes follow James's every move, his posture alert but not afraid, a guardian in a body too small for the role. James feels a tug in his chest, not hope, not yet, but a connection, a reason to keep moving when he's spent years standing still. He thinks of Lila, how she'd kneel in the garden, her hands coaxing life from stubborn soil, how she'd laugh at a puppy's clumsiness. He thinks of Noah, his son's angry departure, the silence that followed, and wonders if saving these puppies is a way to reach the boy he failed. The garage feels different now, its silence less heavy, its shadows softer as the evening light filters. Through the window, James finds a cardboard box on a shelf, its edges soft with age, and lines it with an old towel, creating a makeshift bed. He lifts Luna, first her body light as a breath, placing her in the box where she curls into a ball. Jasper follows his paws, scrambling, as James sets him beside her, his tail thumping once before he settles. Ember hesitates, his eyes searching James's face before he steps into the box, his movements deliberate as if choosing to trust. James sits back watching them, their presence filling a space in him that's been empty too long. He finds a bag of rice in a toolbox, uses it to warm a cloth, and tucks it near Luna, her shivering easing under its heat. The act feels natural, his hands remembering how to care, how to build something from broken pieces. The puppy's softness, their fragility, reminds him of Noah as a child, the way he'd cling to James during thunderstorms, the way Lila would sing to calm them both. The memory stings, but it also grounds him, tethering him to a past he's tried to outrun. He stands his joints stiff, and checks the garage for anything they might need, finding a bottle of antiseptic in a first aid kit. He dabs it on Jasper's. Cuts the pup squirming but not pulling away, his trust unwavering. Ember watches the process, his head tilted as if learning, and when James checks his wounds, the pup holds still, his eyes never leaving James's. The garage is a sanctuary now, its walls holding the faint hum of life, the soft rustle of the puppies shifting in their box. James thinks of the junkyard, the oak tree's cruel ropes, and feels a surge of anger, not just at the act but at the world that allowed it. He's been part of that world, turning away from pain, closing his heart to avoid more loss. But these puppies have changed that their need pulling him back to himself. He sits again, his back to the workbench, his eyes on the box where Luna's ear twitches in sleep. He names them aloud: Luna, Jasper, Ember. The words strange but right on his tongue, like a promise he's making to them to himself. The light fades, the stars appearing in the sliver of sky visible through the window. James's fingers trace the wooden keychain in his pocket, its edges worn from carrying Lila's memory, and he feels her presence in the quiet, not as grief, but as encouragement. He thinks of writing to Noah, not a letter he'll send, but one he'll keep to sort the words he's never said. The puppies need him, but he needs them too, their survival a mirror of his own, a chance to prove he can still care, still fight for. Something small and helpless. The garage, once a tomb of his past, is now a cradle of possibility, its air alive with the scent of fur and the soft sounds of breathing. James checks the water bowl, refills it from the spigot, and sets out more sardines, knowing it's not enough, but it's what he has. He sweeps the floor, pushing dust into corners, clearing space for the puppies to grow if they make it. The thought of losing them tightens his chest, but he pushes it away, focusing on the warmth of their bodies, the trust in their eyes. Willow Creek settles into night, the heat easing the crickets, singing a song that feels like a lullaby. James locks the garage door, its bolt sliding with a satisfying click, shielding the puppies from the world that hurt them. He sits by the box, his hand resting near Ember, who leans into his touch, a silent pact between them. He's not a savior, not yet, but he's a man who chose to act, who carried 3 lives out of cruelty's grip. The puppies have given him something to hold on to, a reason to wake tomorrow, a reason to try. Their connection is new, fragile, like the first green shoot after a long winter, but it's real, and it's enough to keep him here in this moment, in this garage, where healing has begun. James Carter stands on the sagging porch of his Willow Creek, Georgia home, his eyes scanning the quiet street, as dusk settles, the August heat softening into a heavy stillness that clings to the air like damp cloth. The garage behind him hums with the faint snores of Luna, Jasper, and Ember, the 3 golden retriever puppies he saved from the junkyard's cruel ropes, now resting in a cardboard box lined with towels, their tiny bodies stronger but still fragile after 2 days of care. The town feels different tonight, the usual rhythm of crickets and distant car engines, disrupted by a low hum that doesn't belong, a sound that pulls James's gaze to the end of Sycamore Lane, where a sleek black SUV idles its tinted windows, reflecting the last streaks of sunset. The vehicle is out of place in Willow Creek, where rusted pickups and faded sedans are the norm, its polished exterior and silent menace setting James's nerves on edge. He steps off the porch, his boots crunching. On the gravel driveway, his hand tightening around the wooden keychain in his pocket, a habit born of grief but now a tether to the present. The SUV lingers, its engine purring softly before it rolls forward, passing his house at a crawl, the rear window, lowering just enough to reveal a man's face, white mid-50s, square-jawed with aviator sunglasses and a tailored grey shirt. The man doesn't smile, his stare cold and calculating, as if measuring James, the house, the garage where the puppies sleep. James raises a hand, not in greeting, but in acknowledgement, his jaw tight, his ice-blue eyes meeting the stranger's gaze until the SUV turns the corner and vanishes, leaving only the echo of its tires on asphalt. He doesn't know it yet, but the man is Victor Hale, a senior enforcer for Elite Canine Genetics, a breeding operation known for its high-dollar litters and ruthless efficiency. Victor is a former security contractor, his movements precise, his presence heavy with the weight of someone who solves problems quietly and without remorse. The puppies, Luna, Jasper, and Ember, are part of a failed batch deemed unstable for their elite training program, their imperfections marked for disposal, a decision Victor oversaw with clinical detachment. James feels the weight of that stare as he returns to the garage, the puppies stirring at his approach, Luna's ear twitching, Jasper's tail thumping, Ember's eyes locking onto him with that unnerving focus. He checks their water bowl, refills it from the spigot, and spoons out more canned fish, his hand steady, but his mind racing. The SUV's presence wasn't random. It was a warning, a signal that the puppy's rescue has rippled beyond the junkyard, into a world James doesn't yet understand. He thinks of Lila, how she'd sensed trouble before it arrived, her intuition sharper than his own, and wishes for her clarity now. The garage is a sanctuary, its walls holding the scent of fur and the soft rustle of the puppies shifting in their box, but the air feels heavier tonight, as if the stranger's gaze has left a mark. James sits by the box, his fingers brushing Ember's fur, the pup leaning into his touch, a silent reassurance that steadies his pulse. He's not paranoid, but he's lived long enough to know when something's wrong, when the quiet is too deliberate. The town is asleep now, its houses dark, save for a few porch lights flickering like watchful eyes. James locks the garage door, its bolts sliding with a heavy click, and steps outside to scan the street again, finding only shadows and the faint glow of a street lamp. He thinks of Noah, his son's absence, a wound that never closes, and wonders if this fight for the puppies is a way to prove he can still protect something, anything. The SUV's visit has shifted something in him, a spark of defiance, a refusal to let these puppies be taken from him. He returns to the garage, finding an old flashlight on a shelf. Its beam weak, but enough to check the windows, ensuring they're secure. Luna whimpers softly, her nose nudging Jasper's side, and James kneels beside them, his hand resting on her tiny head, her warmth a reminder of why he's here. The puppies are more than strays now. They're his responsibility, a piece of his heart. He didn't know he could still give. Victor Hale's face lingers in his mind, the man's stillness, a threat more potent than words. James knows nothing of elite canine genetics, nothing of the puppy's origins, but he feels the weight of their value to someone willing to drive through Willow Creek at dusk to send a message. The garage's silence is broken by Jasper's. "You're sound so ordinary." It pulls James back to the present. He checks the blanket, tucking it around Luna's shivering frame, and sits against the workbench, his eyes on the puppies, his thoughts on the road ahead. The heat has eased, but the night feels alive with possibility, both good and dangerous. He thinks of the junkyard, the oak tree's ropes, the way the puppies looked at him as he cut them free, and knows he'd do it again no matter who comes looking. The SUV is a shadow on the horizon, a storm gathering strength, but James is no stranger to storms. He's lost too much to fear losing more, and these puppies have given him something to fight for, a reason to stand his ground. The garage, once a grave of his past, is now a fortress, its walls holding the faint pulse of 3 lives he's sworn to protect. James's fingers trace the keychain, its wood warm from his pocket, and he feels Lila's presence not as pain, but as strength. He doesn't know what Victor wants, doesn't know the scope of the threat, but he knows he won't let the puppies go, not without a fight. The stars are bright above Willow Creek, the crickets singing a song that feels like a challenge. James stands, his joints creaking, and checks the garage one last time, ensuring the puppies are safe. He sits by the box, his hand near Ember, who watches him with eyes that seem to understand. The puppies trust him, and in their trust he finds a mirror of his own resolve, a chance to be the man he's forgotten how to be. The night is long, but James is ready, his heart steady, his purpose clear. The SUV may return, but so will he to this garage, to these puppies, to the fight that's just beginning. James Carter leans against the workbench in his Willow Creek, Georgia garage, the soft snores of Luna, Jasper, and Ember rising from their towel-lined box as the morning sun filters through, the cracked window casting golden streaks across the concrete floor. The August heat is already building, but the garage feels like a haven, its walls holding the scent of fur and the faint hum of life after 3 days of caring for the golden retriever puppies he saved from the junkyard. The memory of the black SUV and Victor Hale's cold stare lingers, a shadow that keeps James's nerves taut, but the puppies' trust, their quiet dependence, grounds him in the present. He's checking Luna's wounds, dabbing antiseptic on her raw legs, when a sharp knock at the garage door startles him, his hand freezing mid-motion. Ember's head snaps up, his amber eyes alert, while Jasper yips once, his oversized paws scrambling. On the blanket, James stands wiping his hands on his jeans and opens the door to find Clara Monroe, a 64-year-old widow from 2 houses down her arms, laden with a canvas bag and a thermos that smells of chamomile tea. Clara is tall and wiry, her silver hair pulled into a loose bun, her face etched with lines from years as a veterinarian before grief and arthritis slowed her down. Her eyes, sharp as flint, soften when she sees the puppies, her gaze flicking to James with a mix of curiosity and approval. She doesn't wait for an invitation, stepping inside with the confidence of someone who knows her place in the world. She sets the bag on the workbench, revealing puppy formula kibble and a jar of medicated ointment. Her voice brisk as she explains the formulas for their stomachs, the ointment for their rope burns. James mumbles a thanks, his voice rough from disuse, but Clara waves it off her hands, already busy mixing formula in a bottle she brought. She kneels by the box, her movements slow but steady, and feeds Luna, who laps hungrily, her tiny body relaxing under Clara's touch. Jasper nudges Clara's knee, his tail thumping, and she chuckles, a sound James hasn't heard in years, not since she'd bring her old collie to Lila's garden parties. Clara's husband, Daniel, passed 5 years ago, a heart attack that left her quieter. Her clinic sold her days spent tending a small herb garden and avoiding neighbors. But now she's here, her presence filling the garage with a warmth James didn't expect. She talks as she works, her voice low and steady, sharing stories of her clinic days, of dogs she saved from worse fates than ropes. She tells James about a beagle left in a ditch who became a therapy dog, about how animals have a way of healing people who think they're beyond repair. Her words land softly, but they stir something in James, a memory of Lila's belief that kindness ripples outward, changing more than you see. Clara checks Jasper's paws, applying ointment with a practiced hand, and glances at Ember, who watches her like a judge, his stillness unnerving. She nods at him, smart one, that one he's already learned to trust sparingly. James feels a swell of pride for Ember's strength, for all 3 puppies' resilience, and realizes Clara sees it too. She hands him the formula bottle, shows him how to tilt it for Luna's weak suckle, her guidance patient but firm. The garage feels fuller now, its silence broken by Clara's voice, the puppy's soft grunts, the rustle of her bag as she pulls out a stack of clean rags. She tells James to keep their bed dry, to watch for fever, and promises to bring more supplies tomorrow. He hesitates, then asks why she's helping, a question that surprises him as much as her. Clara pauses, her eyes meeting his, with a clarity that cuts through his walls. She says she saw him carrying the puppies yesterday, saw the way he didn't. Looked back and knew he was fighting for something bigger than himself. Her words hit like a stone, in still water, rippling through the grief James carries for Lila, for Noah. Clara stands brushing dust from her jeans and tells him Willow Creek isn't as asleep as it seems, that people talk, that some are watching. She mentions Old Man Hargrove, the confused soul who tied the puppies, her voice gentle but sad, saying he's not cruel, just lost his daughter watching him slip away. James feels a pang of pity, but it doesn't erase his anger at the act, only deepens his resolve to protect the puppies. Clara's bag is empty now, but she leaves the thermos of tea, a small gesture that feels like a pact. She says she'll talk to a friend at the county shelter, see if they can trace the puppy's origins, maybe find who's behind the SUV. James nods, his throat tight with gratitude he doesn't know how to voice. Clara touches his arm briefly, her hand warm, and says, "You're not alone in this, not if you don't want to be." She leaves as briskly as she came, her sandals crunching on the gravel driveway, the morning heat swallowing her figure as she heads home. James sits by the box, Luna asleep in his lap. Jasper chewing a rag, Ember watching the door where Clara left. The garage is quieter now, but not empty, its air alive with the weight of Clara's words, the promise of her return. James thinks of Noah, wonders if his son would see this moment as weakness or strength, and feels a flicker of hope that he might find out. The puppies need him, but Clara's help has shown him he doesn't have to do this alone, that Willow Creek still has hearts willing to beat alongside his. The sun climbs higher, the heat pressing against the garage, but James feels lighter. his hand steady as he feeds Jasper, his heart tethered to the puppies, to the community beginning to form around them. The SUV's shadow looms, but Clara's presence has drawn a line in the sand, a reminder that James isn't fighting alone. The garage, once a relic of his past, is now a hub of quiet rebellion, its walls holding the first threads of a network that could change everything. James looks at Ember, whose eyes meet his with unspoken understanding, and knows this fight is just beginning, but now he has allies, and that's enough to keep him moving forward. James Carter sits in the dim glow of his Willow Creek, Georgia garage, the soft breathing of Luna, Jasper, and Ember filling the space as they sleep in their towel-lined box the August night, thick with humidity that seeps through the cracked window. The garage is a sanctuary, its walls holding the scent of antiseptic and puppy fur, but the peace is fragile, shattered by the memory of Victor Hale's black SUV and the cold stare that promised trouble. 4 days have passed since James saved. The puppies from the junkyard's ropes and Clara Monroe's support has steadied him, but tonight the air feels charged with a threat he can't ignore. He's checking Luna's healing wounds, her cream-colored fur softer now, when a faint scrape outside the garage door snaps his attention. Ember's amber eyes flashing open, his body tense as he rises from the box. Jasper stirs, yipping softly, his oversized paws twitching, while Luna whimpers, her nose burrowing into the blanket. James grabs a flashlight, its beam weak but steady, and moves to the door, his heart thudding not with fear but with a resolve that's grown since he carried the puppies home. He opens the door, a sliver peering into the dark yard, where the porch. Light casts long shadows across the gravel. The sound comes again, a deliberate crunch of boots on stone, and James steps outside his boots, silent on the concrete, his flashlight sweeping the perimeter. The street is still Willow Creek's houses, dark, save for a single porch light flickering 2 doors down. But the air holds a weight that wasn't there before. He spots movement near the side gate, a figure in black, Victor Hale, his square jaw, unmistakable even in the gloom, his gloved hands resting casually at his sides. Victor's presence is a blade in the night, his tailored shirt and aviator sunglasses replaced by a dark jacket and cap, but his stillness carries the same menace James felt days ago. He steps forward, his voice low. "You're on my property, Victor." The man tilts his head, his lips curling into a smile that doesn't reach his eyes, didn't mean to wake the dogs. He says, his tone smooth but laced with threat. Ember growls from the garage door, a deep rumble that belies his size, and James feels the puppy's courage bolstering his own. He holds his ground. "You've got no business here, leave." Victor steps closer, his boots deliberate on the gravel. "Those puppies aren't yours, Ward. They're property of elite canine genetics, mistakes we meant to correct." James's grip tightens on the flashlight, his jaw clenching at the word mistakes, the puppies' lives reduced to a ledger entry. "They were tied to a tree left to die," he says. His voice steady, "You don't get to claim them now." Victor's smile fades, his eyes narrowing. "You're making this harder than it needs to be, give them up." And we walk away, no trouble. James feels a surge of anger, not just for the puppies, but for every loss he's endured, Lila's death, Noah's absence, the years of silence he's let define him. He steps closer, his voice low. "They're mine, and you'll have to go through me to take them." Ember's growl grows louder, joined by Jasper's high-pitched bark and Luna's urgent yip, the puppies clustering at James's feet, their tiny bodies a wall of defiance. Across the street, a light flicks on Clara Monroe's porch, her silhouette appearing in the doorway, her phone already in hand. Another light flares 2 houses down, old Mrs. Tate, peering through her curtains, her cane tapping the floor. Willow Creek is stirring its sleep broken by the puppies' chorus, and James feels the town's eyes on him, a quiet strength he didn't know it had. Victor glances at the lights, his posture shifting, a flicker of calculation in his eyes. "You've got a loud little army, Ward, but it won't change the facts. Those dogs are ours and we'll be back." James holds his gaze. "You come back, you'll find more than dogs waiting." Victor steps back, his hands still at his sides, but his retreat is deliberate. Not hurried, watched by a neighborhood that's no longer content to look away. He slips into the shadows, the crunch of his boots fading. As he rounds the corner, the hum of the SUV's engine starting in the distance. James stands motionless, his heart pounding, his flashlight beam lingering on the empty yard. The puppies circle. Him, Ember pressing against his leg, Luna nuzzling his ankle, Jasper's tail thumping like a drum. He kneels, his hand resting on Ember's back, the pup's warmth a steadying force as Clara crosses the street, her sandals slapping the pavement, her voice sharp. What was that about James? He tells her about Victor, the claim of ownership, the threat to return, and Clara's eyes narrow, her jaw setting as she dials her friend at the county shelter. We'll see about that, she mutters. The garage feels smaller now, its sanctuary tested but not broken its walls, holding the weight of a fight James didn't choose but won't abandon. He checks the puppies, settling them back in their box. Luna curling into Jasper's side, Ember watching the door as if expecting Victor's return. James locks the garage bolts, the windows, and pulls an old crowbar from a toolbox, setting it by the workbench. Not as a weapon, but as a reminder he's ready. The night is heavy, the crickets silent, but the puppy's breathing is a rhythm that keeps James grounded. He thinks of Lila, how she'd stand up to anyone for what was right, how she'd see these puppies as family, not property. He thinks of Noah, wondering if his son would understand this stand, this refusal to let go. The confrontation has changed something in James, a fire kindled by Victor's threat, a certainty that he's not just saving the puppies, but reclaiming himself. Clara stays for a while, her tea thermos shared between them, her stories of past battles, with cruel breeders calming James's nerves. She promises to dig deeper, to rally more neighbors to watch for the SUV, and James feels the weight of her alliance, a community, waking to his cause. The puppies sleep now, their trust in him a mirror of his growing strength, a reason to face whatever comes next. The garage is a fortress, its silence alive with the promise of resistance, its air thick with the scent of fur and fight. James sits by the box, his hand near Luna, her soft curls a reminder of what's at stake. The stars burn bright above Willow Creek, the town no longer asleep, but watching, waiting, ready to stand with a man who's found his purpose in 3 tiny lives. James Carter sits at Clara Monroe's worn oak dining table in Willow Creek, Georgia, the morning light streaming through lace curtains as the scent of strong coffee fills the air, the soft yips of Luna, Jasper, and Ember echoing from a blanket spread in the corner where they play under Clara's watchful eye. 5 days have passed since Victor Hale's midnight intrusion, his threat to reclaim the golden retriever puppies for elite canine genetics hanging over James like a storm cloud, but Clara's resolve and the neighborhood's quiet support have kindled a fire in him, a determination to fight for the puppies he's come to see as his own. The table is strewn with papers Clara pulled from her old veterinary files and contacts at the county shelter, her hands sorting through them with the precision of someone who's faced battles before. James sips his coffee, his ice-blue eyes scanning a faded invoice, his heart quickening as he reads the name Elite Canine Genetics printed in bold alongside an address on Slate Hollow Road, a rural stretch beyond Willow Creek's industrial edge. The puppies wrestle gently, Luna's cream-colored fur catching the light, Jasper's oversized paws, tripping over a rag, Ember's amber gaze flicking to James as if sensing the shift in the room. Clara slides a folder across the table, her voice steady but urgent. This is what we've got. James batch E22 marked for termination due to behavioral inconsistencies, no medical issues, just notes about nervous tendencies and failed training trials. James opens the folder, his throat tightening at 3 grainy photos, Luna still round-faced in a crate. Jasper tongue out, eyes bright, Ember poised even as a pup, his alertness already evident. The report is clinical cold words like cull and reputational risk, reducing the puppies to liabilities, their lives deemed worthless by a company that breeds for perfection. James's fingers trace Luna's photo, his mind flashing to the junkyard. The ropes, the way her faint whimper pulled him from his grief. Clara pulls another document, an internal memo signed by Victor Hale, authorizing the disposal of batch E22. No digital records, physical files, locked post-termination to avoid scrutiny. The language is a punch to James's gut, the realization that the puppies were meant to vanish without a trace, their suffering a secret, buried in Willow Creek's dust. He thinks of Lila, her fierce love for anything vulnerable, her voice in his head saying, "Do something, James, don't let this stand." Clara leans back, her silver hair catching the light, her eyes narrowing. We take this to the county, file a formal complaint. Get the state's Animal Welfare Board involved. James nods, his jaw set, but his mind races with the weight of what they're up against: a company with money, influence, and men like Victor who don't hesitate to cross lines. The puppies tumble over each other, Jasper nipping at Ember's ear, Luna rolling onto her back, her tiny paws waving, and James feels a surge of protectiveness, a need to shield them from the world that tried to erase them. Clara's dining room is a war room now, its walls lined with photos of her old clinic days, her voice weaving a plan to copy the documents, store backups off-site, and reach a reporter friend at the Willow Ledger who's hungry for a story like this. James listens, his hands steady, but his heart pounding with a mix of fear and purpose he hasn't felt since he lost Lila, since Noah walked away. The garage where he first brought the puppies feels far away now, its sanctuary replaced by this new battleground where truth is their weapon. Clara's friend at the shelter confirmed Elite's history citations for overcrowding falsified health records, but nothing stuck their lawyers too sharp, their pockets too deep. James thinks of Victor's. Cold eyes the SUV's slow crawl past his house and knows this fight won't be clean. He stands pacing to the window, his gaze on the street where neighbors now wave when he passes their porch lights, staying on longer since the confrontation. Willow Creek is waking, its silence breaking, and James feels the town's pulse aligning with his own. Clara kneels by the puppies, checking Ember's healing wounds, her hands gentle but her voice firm. They didn't fight back, James. They waited for you, and now we fight for them. Her words land like a vow, stirring memories of Lila's garden, Noah's laughter, the life James thought he'd lost. He returns to the table, picking up the memo, his fingers tightening on the paper as he reads Victor's signature again. The man's name, a symbol of everything James refuses to let win. Clara's plan is clear: file the complaint today, deliver copies to the county clerk, and send a set to the Ledger's reporter, who's already digging into Elite's permits. James feels the weight of the evidence, the photos, the memo, the proof that Luna, Jasper, and Ember were discarded, not for flaws, but for convenience, their lives a line item in a budget. He thinks of Noah, wondering if his son would see this as redemption, a way to heal the rift between them. The puppies yip louder now, Jasper chasing a dust mote, Luna nuzzling Clara's hand, Ember watching James with eyes that seem to understand the stakes. The dining room is alive with their energy, its air thick with the scent of coffee and determination. James helps Clara organize the files, his hands moving with a carpenter's precision, his mind clearer than it's been in years. The fight is bigger now, not just for the puppies, but for every life Elite has thrown away, for every corner of Willow Creek that's learned to look away. Clara's friend arrives, a wiry woman named Ellen, with a recorder and a notebook, her questions sharp but kind as she takes the story, promising a front-page piece by week's end. James speaks haltingly, at first his voice rough but growing stronger as he tells of the junkyard, the ropes the puppies trust. The room feels electric, the truth taking shape, a weapon forged from paper and courage. Clara seals the complaint in an envelope, her handwriting bold on the label, and James feels a flicker of hope, not just for the puppies but for himself, a chance to be the man Lila believed in, the father Noah might still need. The puppies settle on the blanket, Luna asleep. Jasper sprawled, Ember's gaze steady, and James knows this is their fight too. Their survival, a spark that's lit something unstoppable. The sun climbs higher, the heat pressing against the windows, but the dining room is a beacon, its walls holding the first steps of justice. James looks at Clara, her nod a silent pact, and knows they're not alone. Willow Creek is with them, its heart beating in the neighbors' lights, the reporter's pen, the puppies' soft breaths. The truth is, out now, a light in the dark. And James is ready to carry it forward no matter what Victor or Elite brings next. James Carter stands in the doorway of his Willow Creek, Georgia home, the late August sun casting long shadows across the porch as a beat-up sedan pulls into the driveway, its engine coughing before it falls silent. The golden retriever puppies, Luna, Jasper, and Ember yip from their blanket in the garage, their wounds healing, their energy growing after 6 days of care. But James's attention is fixed on the figure stepping out of the car. Noah, his 20-year-old son, his lean frame taller than James, remembers his dark hair, shaggy under a worn baseball cap. Noah's eyes, once bright with a boy's curiosity, are guarded now, his jaw tight with the weight of their 3-year estrangement. But his presence here unannounced after James's fight for the puppies feels like a crack in the wall between them. The county complaint against Elite Canine Genetics is filed. The Willow Ledger's reporter is drafting her exposé, and Clara Monroe's network of neighbors keeps watch for Victor Hale's SUV. But this moment, Noah's return, is a battle James never prepared for. He steps onto the porch, his boots heavy on the warped boards, his ice-blue eyes searching Noah's face for a sign of the boy who loved baseball and Lila's bedtime stories. Noah slings a backpack over his shoulder, his sneakers scuffing the gravel. As he approaches, his voice low, "Dad, I heard about the dogs a friend from town called." James nods, his throat tight, his hands clenching the wooden keychain in his pocket, Lila's gift now a lifeline to this moment. The puppy's barks grow louder, Ember's deep growl mixing with Jasper's excited yips, and James gestures toward the garage. "Come see them." Noah hesitates, his gaze flicking to the house where memories of their last fight "You let her die." Dad still linger, but he follows his steps tentative, as if testing the ground. The garage is warm with the scent of fur and antiseptic. Luna tumbling over Jasper in a clumsy wrestle, Ember sitting alert, his amber eyes tracking Noah like a stranger who might yet be trusted. Noah kneels by the box, his hand hovering over Luna's cream-colored fur before she nuzzles his fingers, her warmth melting the tension in his shoulders. James watches his son's face soften, a flicker of the boy he knew, breaking through the anger that's kept them apart. He tells Noah their names, Luna for her light, Jasper for his joy, Ember for his fire, his voice steady but thick with emotion. He hasn't shared in years. Noah's lips twitch, not quite a smile but close, as Jasper licks his wrist, his oversized paws scrambling to climb into Noah's lap. The garage feels smaller now, its walls holding not just the puppy's healing, but the first fragile threads of a reunion James barely dared hope for. He thinks of Lila, her belief that love could mend anything, her hands guiding Noah's small fingers to plant seeds in her garden. Noah's presence stirs that memory, a reminder that broken things can grow again if given time and care. James sits on a stool, his hands clasped, his words careful. "I didn't think you'd come back." Noah's eyes meet his, shadowed but honest. "I didn't either, but I kept hearing about you saving those dogs, not giving up." He pauses, his voice softer. "I wanted to see it for myself." The admission hangs between them, heavy with unspoken apologies. With years of silence neither knows how to break. Luna curls against Noah's knee, her tiny body a bridge across the gap, and James feels a warmth in his chest, a spark of possibility he's carried since the junkyard. He tells Noah about the ropes the SUV Clara's helped the complaint against Elite, his voice growing stronger with each detail, as if sharing the story binds them to the same fight. Noah listens, his fingers stroking Ember's fur, his nod slow but certain, sounds like something Mom would have done. The mention of Lila stings, but it's a clean pain, a shared wound that feels less lonely now. James stands, moving to a shelf where Lila's gardening gloves still hang, their green fabric faded but whole. He hands them to Noah, not sure why, just needing to share something of her, and Noah takes them, his fingers tracing the stitching, his eyes distant but soft. The puppies yip, Jasper chasing a dust mote, Luna nuzzling Noah's shoe, Ember watching James as if to say, "Keep going." The garage is a sanctuary, its air alive with the scent of fur and the weight of words finally spoken. James feels the fight against Elite Canine Genetics shift into something bigger, a fight for his family, for the man he wants to be. Noah stays longer than James expects, helping feed the puppies, mixing formula under Clara's instructions. From yesterday, his hands clumsy but willing. The act is small, but it's a starter moment where father and son work side by side, their silence comfortable for the first time in years. James thinks of the county clerk's stamp on the complaint, the reporter's promise of a story, and knows the puppies have sparked more than his own redemption. They've brought Noah back, even if just for today. The sun dips lower, the heat easing, as crickets begin their evening song. Noah stands brushing fur from his jeans, his backpack still by the door, as if he's not ready to commit to staying. James doesn't push, just says, "Room's still yours if you want it." Noah nods, his eyes meeting James's with a flicker of something like trust. "I'll think about it, Dad." The word Dad lands like a gift, unexpected and fragile, and James holds it close as Noah heads to his car, the engine sputtering, to life. The puppies settle in their box, Luna asleep. Jasper sprawled, Ember's gaze steady, and James feels the garage pulse with new life, its walls no longer a tomb, but a cradle of growth. He thinks of Lila, her laughter in the garden, Noah's small hand in hers, and knows this moment is her legacy, a chance to rebuild what grief tore apart. The fight with Elite looms, Victor's threat a shadow on the horizon, but James is stronger now, bolstered by Clara's resolve, Noah's return, the puppies' trust. Willow Creek feels alive, its streets humming with neighbors who nod as he passes, their lights burning brighter since the confrontation. James sits by the box, his hand near Ember, the pup leaning into his touch, a silent pact that they'll face whatever comes together. The stars emerge above the town, their light a promise that even in darkness there's a way forward. James is not whole, not yet, but he's growing his heart open to the son who came back, to the puppies, who need him, to the community that's begun to stand with him. James Carter stands on the steps of the Willow Creek, Georgia courthouse, the early September, sun casting a crisp light over the town square, as a small crowd gathers, their murmurs mingling with the rustle of golden leaves falling from nearby oaks. Luna, Jasper, and Ember, the golden retriever puppies he saved from the junkyard 7 days ago, tumble playfully on a blanket at his feet, their fur soft and wounds healed their energy, a stark contrast to the frail bodies he once carried in his flannel shirt. The fight against elite canine genetics has reached its climax, the county's investigation, fueled by James and Clara Monroe's evidence, shutting down the breeder's facility with a swiftness that surprises even the skeptical. Sheriff Lena Carver, a wiry woman with a voice like gravel, steps to a podium, her badge glinting as she announces the closure of elite canine genetics, citing illegal breeding practices, document fraud and animal cruelty charges against Victor Hale, who's now in custody. His black SUV impounded, his cold stare no longer James feels a weight lift, his ice-blue eyes scanning the crowd, where Clara stands, thermos in hand. Her silver hair catching the light, her nod a quiet victory shared between them. Noah, his 20-year-old son, leans against a railing, his presence steady after returning yesterday, his backpack still in James's garage, a sign he might stay longer this time. The puppies yip, Luna nipping at Jasper's ear. Ember watching the crowd with his usual alertness, and James feels their trust anchoring him to this moment, a moment of justice, not just for them, but for every life elite discarded. The Willow Ledger's front page story broke 2 days ago. Its headline, Breeders' Dark Secrets Exposed, sparking outrage across the county and drawing state officials to act fast. Clara's reporter friend Ellen stands among the press, her notebook open, her pen still as she listens to the sheriff. James thinks of Lila, her fierce heart, her love for the vulnerable, and knows she'd be proud of this day, of the man he's becoming. The courthouse steps are a stage for transformation. Willow Creek no longer a town that looks away, but one that stands together, its neighbors clapping as the sheriff steps down, their faces lit with a pride James hasn't seen in years. He kneels by the puppies, stroking Luna's cream-colored fur, his fingers brushing the wooden keychain in his pocket. Lila's gift, now a symbol of renewal. The county has organized an adoption event for Elite's rescued dogs set for tomorrow. But James already knows the puppies' fates. Jasper catching the eye of a young girl with autism, her shy smile blooming when he licks her hand. Ember choosing Clara as his shadow, following her every step during visits. Luna staying with James, and Noah, her gentle presence a balm for their healing family. The garage, once a dusty relic of James's grief, is now a vibrant hub, its walls echoing with puppy barks and Noah's laughter as he helps build a new crate, his hands learning the tools James once taught him. Noah's return is tentative, their conversations halting but real, each shared moment, over feeding the puppies or sweeping the floor a step toward mending what was broken. James feels the town's pulse in the crowd. Old Mrs. Tate waving her cane, Clara's neighbor, bringing coffee, the diner owner promising free pie for the adoption event. Willow Creek has woken its heart beating in the porch lights that stayed on. After Victor's visit, in the whispers of support that reached the courthouse. James stands taller now, his shoulders squared, his flannel shirt clean for the occasion, his grief for Lila still there, but softer, woven into a life that's growing again. Noah steps closer, his voice low. "You did good, Dad," and James's throat tightens, the word Dad a bridge across years of silence. Luna nuzzles Noah's ankle, her eyes bright, and James sees Lila in her gentleness, in the way she draws them together. The adoption event tomorrow will be a celebration, but today is about justice, about proving that even the smallest lives matter. Clara joins them, her thermos shared, as she talks of Ember's future, with her of training him to visit the local nursing home where her old collie once brought joy. James listens, his heart full, his mind clear, the threat of Elite gone, the puppies safe, the town united. He thinks of the junkyard, the oak tree's ropes, the moment he chose to act, and knows that choice changed everything, not just for Luna, Jasper and Ember, but for him, for Noah, for Willow Creek. The crowd thins, the sheriff shaking hands, the reporters packing up, but James lingers, his eyes on the puppies, his hand resting on Noah's shoulder, a touch both hesitate to break. The sun dips lower, the air, cooling the leaves, swirling in a breeze that feels like a promise. James's home waits, its porch swing dusted off its rooms, aired out, Noah's old baseball glove on the shelf where he left it. The garage is a symbol now, its walls holding not just tools but stories of survival, of love that refuses to quit. James feels Lila's presence in the wind, in the puppy's play, in Noah's quiet smile, and knows this is her legacy, a family reborn, a town renewed. The puppies tumble onto the grass, Jasper chasing a leaf, Luna rolling with a hiccup, Ember watching. James as if to say, "We made it." Noah laughs, a sound James hasn't heard since before Lila's death, and it's a melody that fills the cracks in his heart. The fight is over, but the growth continues each day, a chance to rebuild, to love, to heal. James looks at Noah, at the puppies, at the town stretching out under a sky turning gold, and feels whole, not perfect, but whole enough to keep going. Willow Creek is alive, its streets humming with purpose, its people no longer strangers but allies, in a story that started with 3 tiny lives and ended with a community transformed. James picks up Luna, her warmth against his chest, a reminder of why he fought, of what he's gained. Noah grabs Jasper, Ember trotting beside Clara, and they head home, the courthouse fading behind them, the future bright ahead. The puppies have saved them all, James with his purpose, Noah with his return, Clara with her renewed spark, Willow Creek with its beating heart. The stars begin to pierce the dusk, their light a map for the road ahead, a road James walks with his son, his puppies, his town, knowing that love, even when it starts small, can change everything.